All right, I will call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to our Williamsport City Council meeting. It is Thursday, October 16th. We're in Trade Center 2, third floor. Please rise for the invocation by Councilman Randy Allison, followed by the flag salute.
Dear Lord, as summer has turned to autumn and the leaves fall, and we watch another season of change that's upon us, we look to you, Lord. As for those of us who serve in city government, it means we're soon to enter what will be a time of challenges, difficult decisions, some of them sifting through numbers, and on top of all that, how it's going to affect our constituents. Well, in light of all this, in the coming months, we pray for your help. We pray for your wisdom. Lord, we ask you to bless our efforts so that we can do the best for all of those who depend on us, Lord God, those that work within our city government and the people that are affected by it every day. Lord, we ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3, approval of city council meeting minutes from October 2nd, 2025. Is there a motion and a second? So moved. Second. Any comments, questions on the minutes? All right, Mrs. Frank on the motion for item 3.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We're going to jump around just a bit here. Item 5, limited courtesy to the floor. Is Mr. Adams here? I don't think that he is, and that's okay. Okay, let's jump to item 6. We have a appointment to Ways Garden. Stephen Petro is appointed to a lifetime term starting today, replacing Paul Nyman. And aside from discussions that may or are kind of maybe looking at to adjust that language, that's not a detriment to Mr. Petro or what have you. So motion and a second. So moved. Second. Motion and a second. Slipmore, good evening.
Good evening. I'm here for the Ways Garden appointment. Like you said, Mr. Stephen Petro, who will be replacing longtime member Paul Nyman, who's resigned from the commission. That Paul was a great asset to the Ways Garden for many years. I believe Mr. Petro is here.
Mr. Petro, you're welcome to come up, and if there's anything you want to say, anything, you're more than welcome to. And I'm happy to also open up for questions, comments from members as well with his candidacy.
Hi, Steve Petro. I don't really have anything to say. I'm just really looking forward to joining the Board of Commissioners. I love the space and what it brings to the community, so I hope I can add to that any way I can.
Any comments, questions for Ms. Mealy?
I mean, I think a number of us on council are familiar with Mr. Petro from a variety of other arenas, and know that he will be a competent, an asset to this commission. There's no doubt in my mind about that. That most of the discussion around this issue has actually been the phrasing of lifetime term, which is a pretty massive request of someone starting out in city government. I mean, we run for 4-year terms, and that seemed like a heck of a lot when I got elected. So I believe that Janice is working on language to modify that to a 5-year term, matching some of our other parks commissions. And that, of course, is intended as no insult to Mr. Petro, but it would provide for a slightly more elegant mechanism for our members to step off when they felt that it was their time.
Yeah.
Instead of having to resign because there was no other means of descending from the commission. But that said, thanks for your willingness to serve, Steve, and we look forward to you doing awesome things at Ways Garden.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I would really like it if you would, just for the public's benefit, because you have a very impressive resume that you bring to this position. If you wouldn't mind just explaining a little bit about your background and how great of a fit it is for you at the Ways Garden.
So I went to Penn College for ornamental horticulture and I have a degree in design. I work locally at Tebbs Brothers Landscaping. I'm the designer and project estimator. So I'm not out in the field too often. This is a great excuse for me to go out and get dirty at the end of the day and help Carl with whatever he's come up with for the garden.
Wonderful. We appreciate your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would third that. I appreciate your expertise, your willingness to serve. This is a great asset for the city. We need good, competent, thoughtful people taking care of the asset. Thank you very much for that, Bill. Very grateful for you stepping up. Any other questions for Stephen? All right. Mrs. Frank, then on item 6.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Stephen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's jump back up to item 4. We have a presentation on the management review from the Strategic Management Program from PFM Group. Thanks for being patient. We know you're heading back tonight, so we'll try to get through this and get you on the road.
Yeah, some of my notes.
Yeah. Should have left that on. Thanks again for having us. This is the third of probably 5 presentations we'll have. This is the second official. If you'll remember, when we started this process, there were 3 phases of this. One was the financial condition assessment. We talked about that. I think that was in about July or so. Second was to come back and tell you what we heard from departmental interviews, from talking to several of which the people are here tonight, department chiefs, deputy chiefs, planners, assistant planners, all of that sort of stuff. And to kind of tell you the rest of the story that's not just in the numbers, although because it's a PFM thing, there's certainly plenty of numbers in here as well. And then the last part of it is to bring these 2 things together and to answer probably the, whatever it is, $3 million question. How do you close the deficit for 2026 in a way that helps you going forward? So that's the last part of our presentation. We're at the second intermission here, so to speak, if you're a hockey fan. And my colleague, Bob McDermott, will take you through the presentation.
Right. Thank you for having me. My name is Bob McDermott, director with PFM. So for this management review, we met with all of the department heads and directors and some key staff discussing their budgets, their goals over the upcoming years, and any challenges or operational issues that they wanted to bring up. Wanted to highlight that as part of the budget numbers that are shown in this document, we did remove the City Hall operation allocation. So in 2023, department budgets were showing centralized costs as a line item. So to just equalize across the time period that we were looking at, 2020 to 2024, we removed that number just for consistency purposes. So going to go through all of the departments, everything that we discussed for, we broke this up into 2 sections, elected officials and then senior appointed officials. Won't go through mayor's office, city council. I believe you all have a good understanding of what you do as part of your job. So I'll go down to the bottom. So just an overview of elected officials and senior appointed officials and the trends over the last 5 years. So generally pretty consistent. Mayor's office is showing 0.3% growth. City council showing 7.1% growth. City clerk pretty consistent. Consistent in terms of full-time employees. The solicitor, you'll see, was growing at 17% on average over the last 4 years, but that's largely due to some legal contractual costs related to federal grants. Those are expected to go away over the next few years. So that growth is just temporary and expected to decline. city controller and the treasurer. City controllers over this time period growing at an average of 10.8% annually. That's related to some audit costs, trying to catch up on previous audits dating back to 2022. So in an attempt to bring the city up to speed on required audits, there's some contracting costs that, again, are expected to go away over the next few years. City treasurer, 10% growth over that time period. That's just due to going from 2 positions to 3 positions. And there's also some contractual costs there. But all of this makes sense in the larger context. So next we have administration. So the finance department, which covers the core financial and fiscal management functions. You'll see some growth here. So salaries and wages growing at 27%. These are just largely due to reorganization of positions. There's been some movement in reorg since dating back to 2023. That's when you'll see some of these jumps. So positions that already had existed moving into finance. IT, which was shown in finance, moved to that city hall, that centralized operational fund. So there's a lot of movement here, but overall these costs have remained have grown at a reasonable pace. There are some costs that are growing, which are centralized costs, such as insurance costs. That was one point which was growing. I believe I have it here. The general liability insurance, I believe, was from $400,000 to $550,000 over that time period. But again, that's a centralized cost for the entire city. And as I mentioned, information technology that was shown in the finance department, then it just moved to that CHO allocation. We also have human resources, central department, critical to costs, just one position. So that department itself growing at 5.3% over that time period, just largely related to personnel costs. So going to move to police. This was a core part of this section, an important part of this section. The Bureau of Police is charged with, as you know, enforcing the law, preserving the peace, and providing effective police services. So there are 48 sworn officers, a few civilian positions, some temporary grant-funded positions, community relations officers, and then an IT position. One thing I think what's most important about this section, something I wanted to highlight. Well, first, actually, I'll go to calls of service. So what is the police department actually responding to? How does that look? Traffic-related incidents are the largest source of call volume for the department, followed by domestic-related incidents at 13%, disorder, follow-up and service calls. So these are calls that the department is handling over the phone in an attempt to not send out an officer and preserve existing resources. So you'll see that the follow-up / service calls are growing at an annual rate of 17%, and that's in an attempt to preserve existing resources. And what I'll say is that even if call volumes are declining, that doesn't mean that the nature of calls are consistent. Certain calls may be taking, it might be one call, but it takes an hour or 2 hours of policing time. So even if call volume may be going up or down, it's not necessarily indicative of what the service being provided actually is or the demands on the department. So just wanted to make sure that I highlighted that. The peak call volume is in the afternoon, and this is Mondays through Fridays. So as you'll see in this chart, call volumes by hour and by day tends to peak in the afternoon from around 2 to 5. So afternoon commuting hours. And a lot of that is, again, traffic-related incidents, which are the highest source of call volume. Not the only source, about a quarter, but the highest source of calls. Wanted to discuss police facilities. So as you all know, the police department is spread across multiple facilities, with the central staff being in the adjacent building, with core operations down the road. There are some deficiencies that we noted. We were actually brought on a tour. It was a very informative and eye-opening experience. For the operations and patrol building, there are some issues. So one thing that I'm just going to run through some of the things that we highlighted. So there's a lack of a secure parking facility, improvised wooden lockers for police officer belongings and equipment. Some space issues for tools and equipment, and just generally insufficient space within the building. And we have some pictures here to kind of highlight what we're getting at here. And then insufficient space for record keeping and evidence storage. So this first picture at the top just shows the entry doorway and then the police locker. So you just see Department of Public Works, I believe, actually constructed these lockers and this doorway. And the second picture down here just kind of shows the main floor. And in the middle, as you'll see, there's a police officer there taking a call. So these are actually calls coming into the department. They're being taken at this central desk. And then on the right, as you'll see this little doorway here, that's where, I don't know the correct word, people accused of being crimes, people being charged with crimes are processed in this room over here. They may be disorderly, they may be making noise, and this is at the same time right next to officers trying to field calls. Additionally, there's some holding areas which are next to some critical infrastructure. And again, I don't want to imply that services are being affected. The police and chief walked through kind of every different situation. Let's say there's an assailant and a witness in the building at the same time, all of the steps that they have to take to keep them apart from one another. There's a lot of complications that exist within just operating within this facility. We put that as a higher priority, as a high priority long term. But again, this is still within the context of the fiscal situation. So the city needs to be able to borrow money to actually address any facility issues. So this is a future step that we believe needs to be addressed. And again, a high priority. So we have the Bureau of Fire, Fire Department providing suppression, rescue, and emergency medical services. The department's budget has grown 2.2%. Has been relatively consistent over the past, or dating back to 2020. So I'm going to move to call volumes in the same way that we show the data for the police department, the fire department. And this is something that we see across the state, across the country. EMS calls being a significant portion of call volume for fire departments. So EMS is 52%. False alarms are 15% of overall calls, motor vehicle accidents being 8%, and then other dangerous conditions, public service, and then other, and fires are 4% of overall calls. I believe on the next page, we show how those are growing. So as I mentioned, EMS calls being a significant and growing portion of fire service requests is something that we see across the country, across the state. That's growing at 8.5% on average a year. And then there's some other public service calls, 7.7%, and then fire-related calls growing at 7.7%. But overall, just the number of incidents, total unique incidents, calls to the department growing at an average of 3.3% a year. The calls, the pattern of calls is different from the police department. We see calls coming in from about 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., or that's where they're peaking. Obviously, there's calls overnight, but 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday is really the peak of call time for the department.
If I can interrupt you real quick,
Sure thing.
what do you consider a public service call? What is that classified as?
I will have to look back
Okay.
at my.
That's fine. I was
Thanks,
just curious as to what it was.
No.
Everything else is fairly self-explanatory.
Yes. Yes.
The public service call is basically a call for service.
So it's like, is it like a catch-all, like, hey, it's nothing, none of these other categories, it's just whatever other service.
The fire,
They might
the
call-
fire hydrant's leaking in
Yeah.
on
Or
the street
a
corner.
cat in a tree sort of thing?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Bureau of Codes, which is charged with protecting public health through inspecting rental properties, new businesses, new homes, construction projects, and other quality of life issues. The department has 6.5 staff. That is a decline from previous years where it was 8.5. there were two positions, a clerk and a typist, and then a building official that were removed from the department. So you'll see that the actual like cash compensation goes down at an average of 6.4% over that time period, but then contractual services go up. There's a building code official, that service is being contracted out over this time frame. So overall, just with that decline in positions from 8.5 to 6.5, the department's budget declining around 2.3% a year. For revenues, okay, I do have revenues up here. Permit and rental inspection revenues. So the department does generate revenues as part of its operations. Building permits growing at an average of 12.6% a year, around $700,000. The last year, the department highlighted that there were some big projects that contributed to that. There's Wawa, a Sheetz, Chick-fil-A, some projects at Lycoming College, UPMC. So that economic activity is generating additional revenue for the city and from the department. In addition to building permits increasing, rental inspection revenues are also increasing at an average of 9%. And then overall, just the revenues themselves for the department-wide revenues increasing at a rate of about 7.9%, dating back to 2020. One thing that I would note as part of our discussions with the department is the issues related to the permit management. So currently, the department is spending a lot of time fielding calls from applicants. So if someone puts in an application for a building permit, there's not a system in place for them to be regularly updated. So modernizing the systems that they have, I think it would be a priority. And the department hopes to modernize their software and permitting systems to streamline those processes. But that was something that we saw during our discussions. Next, we have the Department of Public Works, who's responsible for maintaining the city's infrastructure, which spans a lot of different divisions. You have the Office of the Director, Engineering, Flood Control, and then Streets and Traffic Control, which is the largest division. So overall, let me go down to this. I think one thing I wanted to highlight was the levy system. So the Williamsport levy system, which is really a regional asset, but the cost is borne by the city. It currently requires upgrades to maintain FEMA certification, which will then reduce flood insurance costs for residents. As you can see here, just with the costs that are within the department, they only have two FTEs dedicated to the levy system. This is something that we wanted to flag as maybe a potential for regionalization as we discuss and highlight for other departments like the fire department or the police department, where regionalization of some services in agreements with other departments have been discussed. So the levy system, as I mentioned, there's currently only 2 employees, but the city is shouldering the cost for that regional asset. Additionally, DPW is responsible for maintaining the city's properties and the city's assets. So as I mentioned with the police department, some of the issues that arise there from the assets, same thing for maintaining City Hall or other properties that the city owns. So since DPW is responsible for that, if there's a plan moving forward to address the city's assets or how the city manages its property, that may provide some relief to the department or streamline operations. Additionally, the department maintains the vehicle fleet, which has been moving into a more regular replacement cycle, especially with the recent ARPA dollars over the past few years. And we've seen that in several departments where vehicle replacement costs show up, and you'll see an increase in the budget, but it's for capital costs, which are always, or generally speaking, a good investment. Next, we have recreation. So the recreation department is responsible for managing the city's network of recreational facilities, including summer camps and the swimming pool, etc. So overall, the department, the administration costs have actually declined by 1.3% over the time frame. recreation programming has been increasing, and as you'll see here, the swimming program, a 25% year-over-year increase. However, that is also related to some investments in the swimming pools that have been made over recent years. So a lot of that is to be expected, or not. It shouldn't be a surprise. So we do highlight the cost recovery. So as I showed before with the Bureau of Codes, certain departments generate fees, they generate revenues through their normal operations. Recreation programs, day camps, and the swimming pool operations are generating some revenue for the city. But again, that's a trade-off between wanting to provide services that are equitable and accessible to the public, and then also recoup some of your costs there. So overall, those revenues have declined over the last 4 years. As you'll see, it's naming rights have remained relatively consistent, declined from 35,000 to 30,000. Swimming pool admission revenues have declined about 4%. And then other program revenues have declined as well. But again, cost recovery is not ultimately the goal, the ultimate goal for recreation programs. And access and expanding programs was a core goal of the department when we spoke with them. How can they make the services that they provide as accessible to as many people as possible? We have the planning department with 5 full-time employees, director, assistant director, community development specialist, and an office manager. There's some splitting of positions between funds, but one thing that was that we discussed with the department was compliance with federal grant funding, and we believe that that is a very important function. And as I highlighted earlier with the solicitor costs and some legal costs that are associated with that, the management of federal funds and the compliant distribution of those funds is critical and a goal of the department over the upcoming years. And I believe that is it. Anything that okay. Any questions?
Thank you very much for kind of walking us through the management review. Are there any questions by members on anything that they kind of went through here? Mr. Mackey.
I'm curious, a lot of information on calls for the police, a lot of information on calls for the fire department. Were any of those discussions had with codes? Because they actually go out and answer calls when they should be out proactively looking for violations. Any discussions in that realm with the department?
There were some discussions with them, particularly about quality of life enforcement, and saying that their current resources kind of push them more towards the building maintenance, rental inspections, as opposed to those more responding to quality of life calls. But that is something that we can look further into.
Yeah, I think that would be some information I would personally like to have.
I think just to add to that, and Bob can kick me or correct me if I get this wrong, I don't think your codes data is anywhere near as robust as your fire and your police data. Now, some of that is the nature of the services. You call 911, it doesn't go to police or fire. It goes to the county, it gets logged in a system, they're tracking response times. There's the counties involved, there's an emergency 911 system involved, and that gets tracked in a very specific way. So we were able to come to the police chief and come to the fire chiefs and say, give us what's called your CAD data, computer automated data.
Sure.
And they will spit out, and that's how we generate these charts that show what were your calls, how often. You can even go a step down, and Councilman Yoder and I have talked about this to say, okay, well, what does this tell me about staffing levels? Well, you could go the next level down and say for police and say, how long does it take you to respond to a driver's accident? How long do you want to take to respond? How many officers do you have available? So that you can do that with police and fire. You don't have that data for code. You don't have the data in terms of what the calls are. You don't have the data in terms of how long it takes. And part of that is, why don't you have it? Well, because you're not forced to track it. You know, public safety is different. It's tracked through an emergency 911 system. And so it's not unusual to have an enormous gulf between the data available for police and fire and the data available for codes. That said, I think there's absolutely room to do better in terms of collecting data within the code territory so that the answer to the question, when someone says, well, we're really busy, I don't have enough people, there are too many calls. Great, show me. Show me what your calls are. Show me what your people are. Show me what the response is. Show me. They can. I'm not sure codes can.
Okay, yeah, no, that all makes sense. Yeah, but I mean, again, to add to what you just said, yes. I mean, there's an element of public safety to codes as well.
Absolutely.
And they should be, much like our police and our fire, keep track of the things that they're doing. I mean, outside of the CAD 911,
Yeah.
I mean, I know for a fact our police and fire keep track of everything they're doing
Sure.
internally.
Yeah,
and,
100 I
you know,
100%
and yeah,
agree
so
with you.
I mean, the codes department should be doing the same.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions from members?
So what should we expect next from you guys?
So a couple of things. I mean, let me draw out a few themes that we're thinking about here in these chapters, because the next step would be, okay, we told you what the finances are, and we've told you what the operations are. Now, how do we bring them together into some recommendations? So let me hit them kind of quick thematically, and I'll focus on the major departments, right? So the types of things we're thinking about for police, there are a couple. A few of you have asked us, what's the right number of police officers? What's the right number of captains? What's the right number? What's both? What should this table look like, both in the terms of the number of boxes and where they are, right? And spoiler alert, we're not going to answer that in this study because that's a much longer study, but we will tell you how we would go about answering it, right? So that you can think about it, because it's fair to have that conversation with them and to have data. And what we would do, our approach would be to do a much deeper dive into this sort of thing, to ask the police chief and the assistant chief, how many calls, how long should you take to respond to a call? And then you can, there actually is a mathematical answer. It's nerdy, but you can get to it, that says this is the number for the types of services you want to provide and the response time you want to have. This is mathematically the number of cops you should have. So we'll talk about that in the report. This is huge, right? If you're looking for a takeaway from tonight's presentation, your police facilities are inefficient and insufficient. Inefficient in that in order for them to go and talk to one of their officers, they got to walk down the stairs, grab a car, drive down the street, get inside the building, have the conversation, and drive back, right? So inefficient and insufficient. Take a look at those pictures closely, and now envision someone coming into the building, perhaps not fully in the best frame of mind, and think about how you would move them throughout that building. The bathroom is at one end of the building, and the people are at the other. And you got to get them from one spot to the other unless you don't want them to use the toilet, right? It is and they are doing the best they can with the facilities they have. The one thing that one of the main things that will come out of this is we'll talk about the need for financial improvement. And some of that will be, have a fund balance, balance your taxes, balance your budget, don't increase your taxes. This is a very tangible one. Get to the point where you can borrow money, where you can build them a real police station. Where is it? What does it look like? We have some opinions, but we're not engineers, so you should take those with an enormous grain of salt. That is a tangible thing you need to work towards. For the fire department, we still remain pretty big on the regionalization thing. We're talking with the chief and with the finance director next week, so that remains a big thought for us. You know, one of the things for you to think about kind of thematically is when you say, what does our police department do? The answer is lots of stuff. I know no one could read that table, but all the different colors are all the different things. For the fire department, it's really three things. I mean, it's not exclusively, but three is 75% of your calls are EMS calls. That's what most of your calls are. False alarms and motor vehicle accidents, which actually aligns pretty well with the police officers because that's their thing. So if you have a fire department that is primarily a quick response department for paramedics, and you still need to take care of the 4% of calls that are fires, what would you do differently, right? It's easy to think about your fire department as we need to get a number of people on staff to knock down a fire in a building, and you do. That is unquestionably a huge part of what they do. But if you look at where they spend their time, they're filling, what they're really doing is filling the gap in your EMS system, which is struggling like it is elsewhere in terms of getting people on site. Thematically for codes,
Hey, Gordon, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
on that? The one thing that I was curious about is, do these statistics, do these percentages mirror other fire departments in other cities that you studied?
yeah, pretty close. Definitely the EMS is always the highest.
Okay.
Fire is always the lowest or one of the lowest. Maybe 4% is a little lower, but yes. So those two things, absolutely. Number of motor vehicle accidents. Yeah, for a community like this, that makes sense that would, the one that I'm not so sure about, where I wonder if you could drive the number down a little bit, would be the false alarms. 15% is quite a few. Do you do a false alarm fee? Do you do a sliding fee? Maybe you have one and I just missed it.
I don't think we do.
But those sorts of things, what can you do to get people to take care of their false alarms so you're not sending people where they don't need to go? So that's the one I look at and I go, it's a little high. Could we get that down?
And this is a question drawing on excessive amounts of prejudice, Chief and Gordon. Is it possibly related to the age of the population, the false alarm? I'm not sure what's driving most.
You mean
false alarms.
you mean like the college students, or are we going the other end of the spectrum?
Direction. I'm just curious,
don't know.
demographically speaking, what Williamsport's like, and then what's driving those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know.
And maybe that's not what makes it any different from any other community you've studied, but I'm wondering if there are different demographics where false alarms, because then we could target.
Yeah.
You know, if there were misunderstandings or something like that, that we could target specifically based on reporting groups that might.
Yeah, it's an
make it
interesting
an
question.
easier thing to tackle.
Most of the communities I work with, the demographics are fairly similar.
Okay.
They almost all have one or two small colleges, whether it's Alvernia and Albright and Reading, or Penn College and Lyco in Williamsport, or whatever, Penn State Barron and Gannon and Erie. So I don't think that impacts it too much, but it's a fair question to get, and you could probably get into the data. Okay, false alarms. Where is that? A business? Is that Penn College or Lyco? Because colleges usually generate their fair share of false alarms. Is it people's homes? Are they occupied buildings? Are they, you're driving out to a strip of commercial buildings where the alarm keeps going off at 3 a.m. because a cat stepped on something. You could get into that a little bit more, but I don't have.
Right. Yeah, no, understood. But maybe that is something we should drill down on, Chiefs.
I think so.
Looks like it could save us some money.
Yeah.
But
the interesting thing with codes is, we'll talk in there about what we heard about concerns about frankly, the effectiveness and the productivity of the department. I'll just be candid with you because you've all been candid with me in talking about this, that there's a lot of concerns about how effective the organization has been, right? And what these numbers tell me is a couple of things. One, if you want to do better in this area, you can't spend less money on it every year, right? So 830,000 to 750,000 to 720,000 to 690,000. That's going the wrong direction if you want to do better there, right? Doesn't mean you can't do outsourcing. Just again, you've heard me say this 100 times. Don't think of outsourcing as a way to save money, because you probably need to spend more money in this area, not less, right? But I would also, if I sort of break this area down into 3 pieces, you have plan review, which you have outsourced already. That's the building code officials. You have rental inspections, which should be a really big part of this, and rental inspections generate $40,000 a year. Now, I don't know if that's more or less than they should, but it's probably not close to covering the cost of the program, right? So if you think about that separately, and then you have the quality of life stuff that's really hard to outsource, because there's not too many private companies who want to come in here and try and make their living off of getting people to cut their grass or take the mattress off their porch, right? That one you probably always have with you in the department, and it's an important one because it's the one other than, people see rental units and they want them to be well maintained, but a lot of that happens within the building, right? And if you are just a resident who owns your own home and the building looks safe, it's the quality of life stuff that you have to focus on. So we'll have some thoughts about how do you get more productivity out of this area, but probably not a lot about saving money. Public Works, these folks have done a pretty an admirable job with a flat amount of staffing. Their costs aren't really going up. I think a few of the other issues that we've talked about here are relevant to them. You know, City Hall, they are responsible for maintaining the buildings you don't use that often. If you can get rid of some of those buildings and shrink that footprint, you will shrink the amount of work that Public Works has to do. The vehicle fleet, you've made progress in terms of updating that. That's great. You want to continue to do that. You want to continue to get that on a regular cycle. And something that I wish had been in the previous presentation, but I guess I'll make up for it now. Regionalization is not just something for police and fire, although that's primarily where we think about it. I think there's actually an opportunity to regionalize the levee that you have. The levee system that you run does not just protect Williamsport. If you have a flood, the water won't magically go to the border of Williamsport and the town next door and stop. It'll just keep going. And right now, the city is staffing that regional system. That is something that should move to an authority, and easier said than done, but it is a regional asset that protects the region that should be funded regionally, right? So we'll talk more about that in our report, but that's where we're headed. And if you could take those $200,000, which is about the staffing costs, and shift that to an authority, that's a meaningful savings for you. And the last one to kind of chew on a little bit in terms of the numbers here, I'll give you two others in recreation. First off, this table is wrong, and I apologize because I did it, so I messed it up, and I will fix it. Because clearly 12 plus 21 plus 30 plus 5 does not equal 17. So those numbers there, the recreation revenues are wrong. If you add those things up, 51, 63, 68, it's 68 to 973, which means instead of a 2% cost recovery rate, it's an 8% cost recovery rate. So we'll get that fixed, but the story remains the same. I think there's a couple of different ways from a financial perspective to think about recreation. One is this is a service that we want to pay for itself, and we want it to be a service where it covers its costs and it's more or less cost neutral. That is not your department at all, right? Your cost recovery rate here is really, really low, and maybe that's fine. I think the way the department, from our conversation, thinks about this is it's more almost like a social service agency. What is the most number of people we can serve? What is the most recreational opportunities we can provide to people who wouldn't otherwise have them? And so if that's my mode, the two things that I would think about are, how can I draw on the outside community to expand access? So could I get Lycoming or Penn College to put students in my summer camping program, my summer camp program, to increase the staff, to allow you to open a program in a different part of the city? And the cost would be relatively neutral because what that department seems to be focused on is the number of people that it serves and access to services. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there any facility, and you can fill in the blank here on your own, that is relatively high cost that serves a relatively small amount of people? Because if you are looking to get the most bang for your buck, what if you, instead of spending $200,000 on a scum gutter at the pool, what if you use that to do 3 more sites for your summer camp program? Hard call to make, but if you are really going to have a recreation program that's focused on serving the largest number of people, and it's not about recovering costs, that's something to evaluate. And in this one, I didn't want you to think we skipped you entirely, Valerie, in terms of the planning department. This department is really important because of all of these departments, and I'm going to steal from something we used in another report, but I think it's still true here. Remember, we talked that the ultimate way to close your gap is tax-based growth, and Pennsylvania rewards residency. So it's not about bringing Amazon here and having 50, engineers drive into town because they won't pay taxes here anyway. Yes, it would be great to have them. I'm not saying don't get big employers, but from a city government perspective, you benefit from higher tax values and higher residency. That's what you benefit from. So what's the department that you have that will drive that sort of thing? Yes, police and fire is part of that in public works, but your front line, think of them as your defense. Think of police, fire, and codes as the defensive side of the ball. The offensive side of the ball where you can drive change is right there. Not just her, but it's the planning department. That is where you will be able to shape the nature of this community in a way where you'll be able to do some things strategically with housing, do some things strategically with land use planning. This is where you go from, I need to stop these 5 things from happening because they're bad, to I need to do these 3 things over here because they're good. So that's kind of the thematic way that we think about the planning department. So that's to give you kind of a sense of the themes that we have going into the last phase of this. And they're all, you can tell they're all, we have in the back of our heads, we have the financial hole that we have to close. And now we have the operational picture about what you do and what you might be able to do differently. And we'll bring those together. And some of the ideas will be good. And some of them will think you're good and you won't. And that's fine too. But that's what we'll come up with next.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Mackey, sorry, I didn't see him.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, Gordon, I hate to break it to you, but you didn't uncover a giant mystery when
No.
it comes to the police department and their working conditions, right?
Okay.
This is one of these things that we all know that we don't talk about, much like City Hall is something we all know needs to be remedied, but we
Yep.
don't talk about it enough. I keep asking myself, and I guess this is a rhetorical question, whose responsibility is it to find your officers and you all a place to work that's sufficient, right? That's not a Walmart sized police station like the previous company we had come in suggest. Whose job is it to get that ball rolling? And I'm legitimately asking that. This isn't me blaming anybody, but I mean, I've been to the police station, right? I've seen it. I know you guys have seen it. I know the mayor's seen it. When you sit down with your boss and tell him this isn't acceptable, what answers do you get? Whose job is it to get the ball rolling? And I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just asking the question. We need to figure out, how do we get these balls rolling? How do we get out from under City Hall? How do we find you guys a better place to do your job?
Yeah, so the part of it that we are trying to answer, that PFM is trying to answer, is I'm not an engineer, so I don't know the place.
Nor am I.
Nor are you, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So I can't answer that one. But what I do know is whatever you pick, even if you decided to build where you are now, you'll have to do something bigger than you have now and something more expensive than what you can afford with cash.
Right.
So we have to get you to a point where you are financially strong enough to borrow money
Right.
to do whatever it is you want
Yeah.
to do. So that's the part of the conversation that we're focused on.
And when someone, whoever you is, brings us a plan that we think is going to work, we're all probably going to vote yes on it. But
Okay.
we have not had any legitimate ideas for a place for the police to go since we all moved out of City Hall 3.5 years ago. We've had a couple of meetings, right, where people sit down and they draw stuff out by hand on a piece of paper and we have a discussion about it, but that's as far as it goes. So yeah, but who is you? How do we get that ball rolling? I'm not asking you.
No, you're
I'm
not
just
asking me.
putting it out there.
So-
Any other comments, questions?
I have one, quick one, if I could. The EMS calls, do we know how many, if any, are outside of Williamsport?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Or none of them. Is that what you're saying? None of them
Yeah,
are. So there you go.
None of them? None of them? Okay. I just wanted to,
Oh, other than Old Lycoming, which you guys cover, right?
right, okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, this isn't a mutual aid thing, if that's what you're asking. That's for fires.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Mealy?
Just to follow up on that, what percentage of our calls are in Old Lycoming Township now that we have the, the agreement with Old Lycoming? Yeah, oh, sorry. Well, but we don't track. Okay. I mean, you don't need to tell me right now, Sam. Was curious about it. If we're responding if we're responding to all calls on Old Lycoming, I guess I'm curious what level of volume they're generating. Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? My only, I think this is a good point to maybe talk about just kind of like next steps here. So I know, Gordon, you talked about, the next step of this and the next kind of presentation is kind of marrying the two. What's this actually going to look like in terms of our budget, et cetera? What's your timeline kind of look like? Because
Yeah,
we have one meeting in November.
right,
That's, roughly when our budget should be here.
right. So our timeline is to take the ideas that we have and to write them up and to quantify them and to generate the plan document. So that's one side of it, although that's not exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's the other side of it is when city finance is ready, when the draft budget is all the departments have weighed in and it's done and there's that hole, we will come back in and say, okay, remember, these were our 10 ideas. Here's how we think this is the 5 that we would use to close it in this combination.
Yeah.
It starts with Jamie and the mayor first and then comes to you. So we have kind of 2 tracks: produce the plan document, because that's what we're here for.
Sure.
But also we have an opinion on how best to close the 2026 budget deficit, and probably makes sense. The 4th of the 5 presentations would be us back here again to talk about what the 2026 budget looks like and which of our ideas are in there and in what combination. So that's probably the next step.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And you kind of alluded to what I was gonna, I think, publicly kind of ask and reiterate. I mean, I think I'll speak for myself here, but I'm pretty confident I'm not the only one of the group. I think it'd be great to see as much of whatever makes sense, right? Factored into the budget. That's an ask, right?
Yes.
I mean, legally, I think the budget's due in like 3 weeks,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I don't say that to freak you out, Jamie, but like I know that it's a tall order, and I suspect, given the nature of this work going on, that's not happening, right? I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but whatever. That's it. 3 weeks is a tall order for
Right.
where
Yes.
we're at today in the process, is my point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A couple weeks after that, we have our like work sessions, right? I mean, so there is time. Like, it would be great to see that factored in and do exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Maybe be here for that first work session if it's amenable.
Absolutely.
Overall, here's what this budget looks like. Here's what's where,
Right.
And have you being a part of that process. I think
I think
be
that's right.
very
It doesn't
valuable.
make sense. At this point, the PFM show starring PFM, where we talk about our own stuff, that should be over, right? The next conversation, and there will be one more episode of this show, if you really love it, at the very end, where we say this is the plan. But the next meeting is not about the plan document. The next meeting is about the budget.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when we're being realistic about closing the gap, making this happen, I mean, factoring in that legwork up front, I mean, sure, it makes council's lives easier, but more importantly, going about it that way, I think makes a cleaner process.
Yeah.
Still enables the public, like us, to be transparent with the public.
Yeah.
Frankly, enables us to maybe even dive deeper into some maybe other things that we're unsure of going into budget that we think makes, I mean, so anyway.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Great.
that's how I view us coming into the process and being a part of the budget process. In addition of creating. So what happens is at the end of the year, you have a budget that balances in a way that doesn't just close this year's deficit, but the future deficits, right?
Yep.
And then you have the plan document
Yep.
that outlines not just the financial goals, but the other stuff. So that's what we're working towards, is on that. It's both the budget and the plan document.
Excellent. I'll look forward to seeing what that looks like here roughly in a month or so
Yep.
in terms of our budget. And going from there. Any other final questions before we let them get on the road? Miss Mealy.
No questions, but thanks a lot for this, guys.
Yeah.
It's exceptionally helpful and provides a lot of insight. I think I look forward to building on it with you over the next couple of weeks as we go into budget season.
Sure.
But
Yep.
I think even if we didn't build on this, in many ways, this is helpful information. So
Yeah.
so thank you.
Yeah, I'd second that. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
Very good stuff. All right. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you being here tonight and kind of spearheading this process. Okay. To kind of help Vince here, let's jump down to item 9, Mrs. Frank.
An ordinance setting term limits of elected officials and final reading.
Is there a motion and a second?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Mackey, kick us off.
Yeah, I know Councilman Palizzi is going to be getting online here soon, so we'll give him a minute to do that. What was that?
Is he there? Oh, I thought he was there. I switched out to the side. Yeah,
Okay. Well, I gave him the heads up that
Okay.
we were starting, so.
we get started.
As far as I can tell, and Austin, I'm gonna call on you here in a second. We're looking at the exact same ordinance we voted on 2 weeks ago. Austin, I was hoping you sent me the email from the discussion that you had with the Board of Elections.
Yes.
Could you just run us through that, the 8 words that you changed and how that affects the ordinance?
So I have suggested to council 2 changes of 4 words each into each article. Those being within subsection A of all of the articles. It presently reads as it was passed at the last meeting, no persons shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms as blank or more than 3 consecutive terms as council. The suggestion I have for that is that the clause or that be modified to read, no person shall serve, comma, or be elected to, comma, and then the same for the rest of the sentence. So for instance, for 11105, term limits of council members, no person shall serve or be elected to more than 3 consecutive terms as a member of city council. And the reason for that suggestion is I did have a chance to speak with the Board of Elections director as far as what the likelihood scenario would be for the Board of Elections and what they would do in the event there are term limits assigned to elected officials within the city. While we don't know for certain until there would be an issue, for instance, someone would try to be placed on the ballot who could not be based on the ordinance. But if that were to happen, my understanding from having talked with him, Mr. Lehman, was that the Board of Elections would likely defer to the petition challenge process or the candidate to actually file a legal challenge in the courts. The Board of Elections would not be the gatekeeper to telling someone whether or not they were allowed to put in a petition. And so that conversation led into what, as far as what the ordinance in its current form certainly said, which was no person shall serve. And I believe we talked about this a little bit during the last meeting, in that the prohibition was actually against serving as opposed to being elected to.
Mhm.
And so what that means in practical matter is that in its current form, as it was passed, it doesn't actually preclude someone from being elected to a 3rd term. It would preclude them from serving that term. So there would be nothing to prohibit someone from running getting elected, but then they would be subject to removal because they're not technically not allowed to serve. And that's something that I talked with Mr. Lehman about this, that is something that would be of his concern that he's seen in other places where that actually does become an issue because someone's allowed to be elected but not allowed to serve. So that addition is meant to correct and prevent someone from just getting on the ballot and then not and sort of falling into that loophole, so to speak. And it would also make it in legal terms, we call it a case or controversy, which means when something's ripe for a judge to review and actually make a decision on. The rule of law is that you have to have an actual case or controversy for a judge to issue a decision. Judges don't give advisory decisions on things. So in this event, if it just said shall serve and someone was running, well, the ordinance doesn't prevent them from running. So there would be a risk that a judge actually wouldn't even issue a decision on it until after an election, which by that point, I mean, it's not good for the process. It's not good for the voters and everything. So this would create an actual case or controversy relative to the election process. So someone could say, hey, you've gone past your term limit. You're not allowed to be elected to another term. And if you try to be, I will have to file a petition to a challenge to your petition. And on that same note, someone who's trying to run and perhaps doesn't agree with this would be able to say, hey, this prevents me from being elected. And that's an actual case or controversy at this moment, which I can file a declaratory judgment action or something like that. So trying to get a sort of holistic view of all the things that could arise in the wake of a term limit ordinance, being that we don't have one. So we're not talking about just adjusting it. So we have to think through all of these different possibilities. The second change that I'm suggesting is within subsection B. And this is the change that is intended to address the other conversation that we had at the last meeting, was the issue of whether or not the ordinance could preclude someone who's presently in office from running again. And this is intended to allow, and I think this is, if I remember correctly, this may be the exact language that Ms.
I
Mealy
believe you give me too
referred
much
to.
credit, Mr. White.
No,
But thank you.
I think it is to a T, the exact language that she mentioned during the meeting. Because when I heard you say it, I looked at the ordinance. I said, that's so easy. I can't believe I didn't think of that. And because I was looking through all these different ways to do this, and it does really get accomplished that easily. So thank you for that. And that is under B, where the revision is to add the words "and one additional term" between commas, and I'll read it, the entirety of that sentence under the same section under council. Any person who is serving as a member of city council or has been elected to serve as a member of city council as of the effective date of this ordinance may serve the remainder of their current term and one additional term, regardless of whether such service would exceed the term limits established in subsection A. So that's those 4 words and those 2 commas. That section or that addition is recommended to be added to each of these to avoid the legal issue that arises based on that City of Bethlehem case. And those are the only 2 changes that I'm suggesting. It is, of course, up to council whether or not you want to make those changes. The fact that I put it on a piece of paper and put it down doesn't mean that it is in fact presently part of the ordinance. So if you're interested in one or both of those, you would need to do an emotion amend of some sort before you vote on it.
We could just do a motion to substitute the ordinance that you sent us, right, for the one that or do we
Yeah,
have to? Okay.
It's already been read into the record, so to speak. So if you were interested, you could do it, motion to accept these solicitors' additions to the ordinance. That would be appropriate
Given that we're
if you're
acting
interested.
with
Yeah.
each of 4 sections, that seems like the simplest route.
Yeah, I mean, if that's how the group wants to do it, that's fine. So the first one you mentioned, the loophole, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I don't agree with the second one. Specifically, I mean, look, maybe it's a little thing, but when you look back at why Williamsport's an optional third class city, it was really back in the 60s a desire to have a little more autonomy from the state. And the timing of that, actually, from when I think Bruce, you kind of told me this before, the timing of when we adopted that was right around when they adopted home rule, to the point where people from Williamsport were like, what are you doing? Like, can we just get grandfathered into being home rule? Right. And I say all that because I think the context for that Supreme Court case that Austin's talking about is important, right? It's just, to me, like one little more thing that, with the intent of trying to have more autonomy and build a governance system, community, what have you, that we want in our own kind of approach to doing it outside of Harrisburg. Just one more little thing that's just like, we're not able to do it. And I say that because I think, even more broadly, you start thinking about, how we do other things. I just think we're at a point, when you look at our financial situation and other things, I think we're at a point where we should maybe embrace being more of an optional third class city and actually start challenging some of that kind of stuff, right? Maybe this is a little thing, and maybe this isn't the right thing to maybe start that on, but in the spirit of that, I think this is maybe a good example of where that overreach, maybe in a minor way, comes into play here. So for me, I don't know that I agree with that second change. And so
but just so that we're thinking this through, Adam, the net effect of this, I mean, really, we're only looking out the next 4 or 5 years, right? That additional terminology has any impact.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Everybody who's currently serving can run for one more term, regardless of whether or not they would exceed the limit, the 2-term limit.
Sure. And I think really it affects
3-term
what?
limit.
Controller, treasurer, Bonnie, and the mayor, right?
Right.
I mean, so it affects 4, I think,
And
of
me,
the.
I think perhaps, but I wouldn't, I don't matter in this one way or the other, right?
No.
So it
Yeah.
wouldn't. Austin.
I mean, either way, like my point is,
It's your language,
Yeah.
Mealy, so.
my point is, there's
watch my language, Austin. Okay, and I have a hard enough time with that one.
my point is, so Austin, this Supreme Court case was from what, the 70s, right?
1986.
86. All right. So 38 years. It'll be 39 in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Whole new people. A lot's changed in nearly 40 years, right? And all I'm saying is there's going to be other instances where, we try to do something and for very good reason, and there's going to be this old kind of Supreme Court case that's going to be like, nope, you can't do that. And I think we got to start challenging that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's just my personal opinion.
I am fine with that one way or the other. I am simply questioning. It sounds to me as though what our solicitor is saying is that if someone were to challenge it, we would lose based on precedent. And
I mean, I'm not a judge.
Me neither.
My opinion from the solicitor's office is that it is this language. I recommend this to avoid a legal challenge because given that is an optional third class city case and what is said in that case, and it is the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, I feel pretty comfortable saying I don't see I don't see it being falling on the city's side if the city were to be challenged, I guess would be the way to put it. And that is why from the solicitor's office, I'm recommending the language to avoid getting into that legal challenge because there is an expense that's involved with a legal challenge, and it could be a declaratory judgment action against the city, and then the city has to defend against that. So trying to get in front of that. But again, it's the solicitor's office where I'm not the legislator. I'm just the lowly solicitor.
Yeah. No, fair. And look, Austin, I appreciate that, and I think, look, at some point, if it's not this, it's something else. We got to get comfortable challenging stuff, and we got to get comfortable with the costs of doing that, right?
Mhm.
If it's this, fine. If it's something else, fine. But I think that speaks to something we as a city have been very nervous about historically, of legal costs, right? We don't want to get willy-nilly, certainly, right? There's a approach to doing it in a thoughtful way, but I do think we need to be more willing to take those risks in other places. So.
And I don't disagree with you. This one strikes me as the risk might be particularly unpleasant because we're talking about us getting
Fair.
sued by our controller or sued by our mayor or something, you know,
Yeah.
for excluding them in this ordinance. And to me, I don't know. I'm happy to take Austin's recommendation on this, but I'm also not, you know, I agree with your point in theory, Adam. In practice, I'm not sure this is the hill to maybe not die on, you know, but at least lay down on for a while. And, but how does everybody else feel about that? I would, however, say that the hill that I am willing to die on is that I think that, that the controller and treasurer's term should be 3, not 2. Only because I do feel like those positions, well, I think those positions should be hired, not
Yeah.
elected. But setting that aside as something we may or may not accomplish via a home rule charter
Yeah.
at some point in the near future, I feel as though they should at least be as close as we can, a lengthier term to give someone time to get comfortable in position and accomplish something.
Yeah, and look, I mean, to that point, I mean, I'll throw this concept out there while we're talking about treasurer controller specifically. I mean, if the consensus is adjusting it to 3, fine by me, all in favor of that.
Mhm.
I'm not opposed to eliminating it for those 2 positions specifically. And I say that specifically because, they are really more technical oriented roles. And if you get somebody that really embraces that, and there's a lot of value they can bring. And, the idea of that from going from 2 to 3 terms is, at least for me, taking more advantage of when we get somebody that embraces the role and develops the skill to do it well. I think in that vein, I'd be comfortable even removing it for those 2 roles, right? But that's just, I'll throw that out. I'm fine with adjusting that myself.
Mhm.
So.
So
Adam.
Yeah, Randy, please.
And
Yeah.
Councilman
Yeah,
Pelisi as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Vince, go ahead.
No,
You
go
can
ahead,
wait.
Randy. I'm just letting everybody know Vince is here in spirit.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam, on those 2 positions, that not having a limit. That's all.
Vince, anything you want to add to that conversation when it comes to the controller, treasurer? Are you there?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate it very much. Thank you. I also agree with Randy. I appreciate you guys speaking up for that. That is a position, both of those positions are positions that are very technical. And I personally would like to see term limits removed for those 2 positions, at least for the time being, until we get our feet a little bit further, more under us. I do like Liz's position that should we move to a 3rd-class city, or I'm sorry, move to home rule, that would be a hired position. But in the meantime, I would truly hate to see us potentially lose qualified people for those positions that truly embrace the technicality of it, because of term limits. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you for John. Thank you for making sure everybody had a chance to hear me.
At this point, I'd be in favor of just moving that to 3 terms versus eliminating it.
Fine.
Because at some point down the road, then another council,
Yeah.
because that's the route we're going, if they determine that somebody else should be in that role longer, they can do that. But hopefully we have the incentive to get home rule done. We obviously have the reasons why we need to get that done. So
Yeah.
it will be a non-issue.
Fair. Yeah, and I'm fine with that too.
So it sounds like we have some
Motions to make.
other motions to make too.
Yeah.
I do have a quick question that I'd like some clarification on, from last meeting. In that language, we had talked a little bit at the last meeting about the potential of someone doing their 3 terms on council, stepping off for a term and then coming back. Is that still allowed with those changes in language? Or whether it be a mayor or anybody, does that allow them to do that?
Yeah, as it's presently written and even with the additional language, it is a matter of consecutive terms. So it's technically, yes, if someone were to step off for a term or, not be elected for that amount of time, they could theoretically do another stint of 4
Just-
or 8 or 12. Yeah.
Looking for a way to get Randy back. That's all.
I mean, if that is a concern that it be cumulative,
No.
you could put that in the ordinance as opposed to
No.
consecutive.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for me either. I mean,
No.
no, I mean, I would agree. And look, I mean, if a future council thinks it becomes one, assuming other systemic changes that we've only talked about don't happen, I mean, they can figure it out. I mean, the reverse could happen as well, but yeah,
Yeah.
I understand. I agree with you, Eric. So, any other comments, questions? Anybody want to make some changes?
No, just that over the course of the last 2 weeks, yes, I think I am now also leaning towards either eliminating or extending controller and treasurer too. I see the value in that now. So however we want to, I think I would probably tend to lean more towards Councilman Biter's suggestion.
Fine by me.
I apologize, Councilwoman Mealy's suggestion.
Thank you for the
We'll bump
credit.
that. So
Okay.
maybe we should address that first.
Yes, sure.
So I will allow.
Oh, I don't give a damn. What, just to change it from 2 to 3 under, well, so we're looking at 2 different amendments.
We're looking at a couple different ones.
One of which is to, under 129.04 A and 131.04 A, change the number 2 to the number 3, making the language read, no person shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms as city controller or city treasurer.
You're making that motion?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Any additional comments, questions on that motion? All right, here you see now Mrs. Frank on the first motion to amend.
Mr. Allison,
Yes,
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion to amend passes 6-0.
The next motion that I am hearing that we need to make is under, Mamma Mia, sorry, under section 111.05, section 123.03, section 129.04, and section 131.04. Part A, and all 3, amend the language to read, no person shall serve or be elected to more than.
Yeah.
Adequately made, Austin?
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any additional comments, questions? All right, Mrs. Frank on that motion to amend.
Mr. Allison,
yes,
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder. I'm
Yes,
sorry, Mr. Bider.
Yes.
6-0 for that.
And if I adequately followed the thread of discussion, we are not making the final motion in this litany then, or are we?
That's up to you all. I don't support it, but I could be the only one, so.
I heard Randy say that he was in agreement with you. Put it this way, this, once again, is not important enough to me to move in one direction or another. So if someone else would like to make a motion, then I'm happy to entertain the concept.
Any other motions that anybody else wants to make?
yeah,
Okay,
I'll make a motion
Okay. What's your motion, Randy?
to not do that.
thanks, Ray. Well played, sir. Well played. All right,
The voting of the ordinance as amended?
So, go ahead. Go ahead, Eric.
To be clear, we are not making a motion to change the language that would allow someone to participate in that third term.
So it sounds like, yeah.
Or
Okay.
fourth term,
Or
depending
fourth
on the
term,
office.
or whatever it is,
depending
yeah.
upon
Right.
office and things like that.
To be clear, also, Austin.
Yeah.
My understanding from the perspective of, say, the voter services office is that it would be up to someone to bring a challenge if one of those people currently sitting in those roles were to run for reelection. That is to say, that the lawsuit that we were speaking of is not presumed. It would have to be, someone would have to challenge the petition of someone seeking to run for reelection who had exceeded term limits.
Correct, based on my understanding, at least presently, it would not be self-effectuating within the voting system, as in someone would not be allowed to be placed on the ballot or written into the ballot. It would be that either a opponent would have to file a challenge to the petition, or the person who feels aggrieved would have to file a declaratory judgment action to have the ordinance invalidated as to them as applied. Or if none of those things happened, that person could be subject to removal quo warranto after being elected, whether that's through, anyone really could do that as far as getting the district attorney's office involved, and there's a whole process. That's a special type of civil action, but yeah, it is not, it doesn't carry it. It doesn't execute on itself. It requires someone to do something about it. If someone is doing something that's not in compliance, like unlike many other ordinances in the city where,
Yeah.
of course, you have codes enforcing or you have the police enforcing, there's not
Mhm.
going to be an enforcement mechanism in this other than the people and the normal court system and the processes associated with that.
I mean, us being squarely central Pennsylvanians, almost certainly somebody will take action on that somewhere down the line, but it's not a guarantee, I guess was my point.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't, you don't pass this and a lawsuit appears tomorrow. I mean, I guess someone could file a lawsuit tomorrow, but I'm not aware of someone preparing to do that.
Only one way to find out.
It's the truth. Any other questions? Any other? They want to make any other proposed amendments? Okay.
If I may, real quick, I just
Please.
want to be, if you could give me a very clear understanding of what now Randy's motion precluded on this particular ordinance.
Randy's motion, I think he was just joking around. I don't think it was for anything.
Yeah, Randy was
Yeah.
just goofing off.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I knew very clearly what we were voting on. And now, if I may, just to reiterate, please feel free to jump in, is that we are extending term limits for controller and treasurer also out to 3 terms, and that it is not to be, that they may not serve more than 3 consecutive terms. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And no motion was made to remove treasurer or controller from this specific ordinance?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. No, if it was extended out to 3 terms, I'm okay with that.
Any other? So we're at the main motion, which is to vote on second reading. We've made those 2 changes about the loophole that Austin brought forward. And then the treasurer controller. I don't get the sense there are other amendments to make. So when I call the vote, it'll be for the second reading of the main motion to pass this as we've amended it. So it's really just a long-winded last call. All right, Mrs. Frank, hearing you see none, then on item 9, please, the main motion.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0 in second reading. Nice work, everybody. You too. We'll jump back up to item 7, Mrs. Frank.
An ordinance, transfer ordinance number 11 in the 2023 budget, final reading.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Good evening.
Good evening again. This is the second reading of the ordinance number 11 for the 2023 budget. This again was just the reorganization of the budget after we did the 2023 audit.
Any comments or questions in final reading? Here you can see none, then Mrs. Frank, item 7.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
I think he left.
Yeah.
He left.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We'll jump to item 14, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution accepting a contract for audit services with, I don't know how to.
Mardissel.
Mardizzle.
It's gonna be at least 3 years before.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Ms. Livermore.
Good evening again. The resolution you have before you is to accept the contract for audit services with Mardissel for the years 2024 through 2026. Mardissel met the city's RFP minimum requirements with the lowest responsible bid. Mardissel currently serves over 350 governments, of which 100 of them are municipal entities. They serve some local authorities in the city. They do the Water and Sewer Authority. They also serve Hope Enterprise and North Central Site Services. So that's some of the services that they have in Williamsport that they serve with their audit servicing. They have done audit services for Pittsburgh, Lancaster, Allentown, Bethlehem, Sunbury, and Pittston. Mardissel is ranked 28th in number of single audits performed annually. They are also ranked in the top 50 accounting firms nationwide for the amount of federal awarded dollars audited.
This went to finance. Ms. Mealy.
Yes, it did. And finance was, I think, I speak for Randy and I both, but Randy can also speak for himself. Relatively delighted because actually the work that's been done by Zellenkowski Axelrod the last few years means that we actually came in under the amount that we anticipated spending, I believe, not by a whole lot, by 5 or 10,000.
Yeah.
And for each budget year, which is great to realize that we'll have a little bit of a savings. And consequently, we do have sufficient funds, in fact, slightly more than sufficient funds budgeted in this budget year. And we'll, of course, budget in next budget year to complete our audits and get caught up in that September 26 timeframe that we've all been so eagerly looking toward.
And this bid is actually about $20,000 less than the
$20,000
previous.
annually?
Yes, just because of the position we were in for the previous audit. So this is
Got it.
about 20,000 less for an annual audit.
20,000 annually. Okay, sorry.
Around
I
about
thought, I was thinking we were paying more like 85. Wow, that's great. And yeah, so I think Randy and I both looked on this favorably, and the firm looks qualified. Obviously, is well represented already in Williamsport and seems to be trying to enter into the market. Might be another reason for the favorable rates that we were given. So we're excited to move forward. I will say that I always have a little bit of trepidation when we're switching from one firm to another, but I think I stated in finance that didn't happen for quite a while with the city's auditing services, and that did not turn out to be a good thing for us. So perhaps it's just as well that we move, 3 years here, 3 years there might be a good practice here for a while. Also, this is in their technical proposal, which we had not reviewed before the finance committee meeting. I don't think I've ever seen a firm that provides its turnover percentage as
I
part of,
don't know that I've seen that before.
which is fascinating. And
Yes, they were very detailed.
wonderful. Yeah, I know. Yeah, very, very thorough. But yeah, their employees seem to stick around, which is great. And it's nice to know that within the firm, we should be working with most of the same people over the next 3 years. So I think that speaks
Right.
favor for them as well.
Be very helpful.
Mhm. That is everything that I recall from the finance discussion, but I will obviously offer the floor to Randy if he has anything he'd like to add.
No, I think you hit all the high points and the details as well. I was equally impressed by the detail they had in there. They not only gave the total amount for each year going ahead, but they broke it down into different departments, sections that they would be looking at, and assigned a dollar figure to each one of those. So it just, yeah, they really pay attention to detail, and it gives you a little bit more of an idea of costs. So yeah, I was very happy with it as well.
Thank you both for that. Are there any additional comments, questions on the auditing resolution? Excited to be here.
Mhm.
It's been a long time coming.
More excited to be there next year when we're
Same.
when this goes back to being an annual conversation.
We're closer. We're closer. All right, Mrs. Frank, then on item 14.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Livermore. We'll jump up to item 8, Mrs. Frank.
An ordinance designated Buck Run Alley in final reading.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Scott, good evening, sir. Welcome to the podium.
Good evening, Council President Yoder, members of council. The second reading of an ordinance to present for your consideration. This ordinance is for designating Buck Run Alley. It's currently an unnamed alley 112. It runs east to west between another unnamed alley, 111 Mary Street, and over to Penn Street. And it's between Eldred Street and Lyons Avenue. We talked about some of this at the last meeting. I did follow up with Tyler Landis, the Lycoming County GIS addressing coordinator. He's been out. We're going to follow up to see what other situations we have like this in the city. And also we did talk to the resident who suggested, this name Buck Run Alley. And as Tyler agreed to, well, we should do this so there's no confusion with the emergency response or delivery service.
All right. Any additional comments, questions for Mr. Scott? Mr. Mackey, please.
Yeah, just thank you for making that call. I know that was a discussion that kind of came about from this 2 weeks ago. So you're saying that process is still ongoing?
Yes.
So yeah, I would be just curious to know what the findings are. So when you find out, let us know. But thank you for following up on that. I think it's important.
Any additional comments, questions? Okay. Mrs. Frank, then on item 8.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott. Item 10, Mrs. Frank.
An ordinance amending section 353.01 of the codified ordinances of the city of Williamsport, Lycoming County, Pennsylvania in first reading about LERTA.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Ms. Fessler, good evening.
Yes, good evening, President Yoder, members of council. You have a memo in front of you outlining the recommendation of our department to increase the number of LERTA zones in the city under the current adopted commercial LERTA ordinance from 3 to 6. According to our assessment, there's a significant amount of property currently zoned and assessed as commercial within census tracts 3, 8, and 10. The developers would be more likely to redevelop, giving this LERTA incentive tax abatement. Also included in the documents that you were provided was a map of the current LERTA zones as well as the proposed changes. If you have any questions.
This did not go to committee. This kind of came to us a couple days ago late, so
Correct.
I think they were eager to get the process started, and so I added it. Of note for the group, we will need to do a public hearing before at the next meeting. So that's being advertised, I believe. We'll have to procedurally do that then. As it's amending the ordinance and as it's related to LERTA. So just a heads up for in a couple weeks. Any comments or questions though from members? Ms. Mealy?
While I don't have any objections to this as a mechanism, over the course of the next year until we get to the end of 26 and the current LERTA expires, I do think as a rule that the city should put a bit more thought into designating areas that we specifically would like to see developed. As it stands, we are basically designating almost the entire city with the exception of 3 heavily residential neighborhoods on the
right.
north end. I don't think that's going to result in anything horrible happening between now and the end of 26. But in the long run, I think that incentives like this were designed more to target
Yeah.
development within specific zones. And that is why I think we outlined the original 3 zones. I agree with you, Ms. Fessler, that there are other zones that should have been considered, specifically Newberry, the far end of the city, other areas where we would like development. That said, if we decide that we are going to pursue another commercial LERTA toward the end of 26, I would prefer to see us call out smaller zones within these zones for development where we very specifically want to see that development.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not being clear, but that,
No,
you know.
No.
You're spot on.
Yeah.
Right. It seems to me like something that it can be used to sort of direct development, you know, a little bit to the right or to the left. That's not exactly what I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
but there should be some thought along those lines to me, when we move forward again.
Yeah.
That said, like I said, I don't have an issue with doing it kind of hard and fast over the next year if that's something we think would be useful, I suppose.
Yeah, the concern that I have just with zone 3, I mean, that is still a pretty heavy residential area where we're looking at. I know there are some pockets as Councilwoman Mealy had talked about it in there. So is this something that we can look at this map over the next 2 weeks, potentially amend that a little bit, maybe look at some of those more precise zones that we can do that in?
This change to this ordinance will not change the zoning, so the areas that are currently residential will remain residential, just make the
Yeah.
commercial areas in those areas available, so it won't change zoning or anyone's ability to build a commercial business in a residential neighborhood. Scott Williams really drove this, and our goal was to, rather than sort of piecemeal different census tracts, just to include full census tracts in this iteration of it. Rather than going through and saying from this street to this street with the exclusion of this street and this street, because it doesn't really change the outcomes.
Yeah.
Someone can't build a commercial property in a residential area, no matter what our ordinance says.
So that's the next question that I have. I've thought that we should probably take a look at, and I think that Mr. Williams has said that he is going to start looking at zoning in the city as a whole.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
that, I don't want that to happen with this in place, and we don't have something to protect those areas in the future.
Yep, he's gonna be working in 2026 with DCD on a grant for just a look at the zoning in the city and potentially a rewrite of those zoning ordinances, which we'll do in conjunction with Gary, obviously.
Sure.
But as Gordon mentioned earlier, our department is working really hard to drive, community and economic development. And one of the challenges that we have right now to what Councilwoman Mealy is suggesting is that we don't have great data to be able to do that. We have police data and we have fire data, but it would be really great to have codes data to be able to overlay. We also don't have a GIS system, so we put a GIS system in our budget so that Scott can use his expertise to take the fire data, the codes data, the police data, overlay it to identify which neighborhoods are underperforming so that we can potentially identify state and federal resources to invest in those neighborhoods, whether or not it's our HUD funding or other resources that can basically bring neighborhoods that are underperforming up. So that will be part of what we're doing. At this point, we're just trying to make this LERTA work in a way that will incentivize, development in areas that we know developers have their eyes on currently.
Any other questions? So, Ms. Fessel, if I can kind of chime in. So do we have interest currently in these areas?
Yes.
Or we do? I mean, do we have any kind of, like, is there anything you could share about like what specifically, that kind of thing?
Nothing I could be comfortable sharing in this meeting without the developers.
And then I guess like, Ms. Mealy kind of referenced, there's like essentially like a little over a year left of the time period, right? So I guess like, why now? I mean, it's like, yeah, like, I guess there's interest there, but I mean, like, is there something that like spurred this interest? I mean, because we've had this in place for a couple of years now. I know that we've been really trying to push development across the city, but like, what about these specific zones? Just, to me, it seems like it came out of nowhere a little bit. So I'm just trying to understand like, what's the root here? And like, I mean,
Sure.
frankly, do we really need to do this to incentivize it? That's what I'm, I guess, trying to understand. And I asked that because, I don't think you were in your position yet. When we passed this originally, I mean, there was a lot of debate amongst ourselves about, that issue specifically. And while I think, I'm probably a little bit more of a believer than I used to be on the residential side, I still have a lot of those kind of questions lingering there. I mean, frankly, of, the effectiveness of the tool, like that kind of stuff. I know we've gotten like Wawa, Chick-fil-A, and that's certainly worth it. But outside of that, I don't know that we've gotten really anything necessarily, from outside the area, so to speak, that kind of thing. So just, I mean, is there anything you can communicate to maybe address some of that?
Sure. To your point about what have we gotten to benefit out of this. So under the existing LERTA ordinance that we enacted, we had 4 commercial properties and residential properties developed with an estimated $3.2 million added to the tax base. An estimate because some of the properties haven't finished construction or received new tax assessments. So the current annual exemption for those properties is only $55,000, which will be added gradually to our tax revenue over the next 10 years. So that's to speak a little bit to what that incentivizes. As far as why now, one of the things is that Scott Williams worked at length with Nick Grimes. Throughout this year, you saw multiple other ordinance amendments come through with changes to our process and what that looks like. Our process was very clunky and made it very hard for people to apply. It was a back and forth process between our department and codes. It put a lot of the onus on the developer or on the property owner to keep a yellow piece of paper or a pink piece of paper and remember that in 30 days after this, or after they get this permit, they have to mail this yellow piece to Gary and they have to mail this pink piece to our department. It was just a really clunky process. So he worked really hard with Nick Grimes to streamline the process. And in part of streamlining that process, was his analysis of the zones and what made sense and what we could potentially enhance based on the developments that we were aware of coming forward in the next year or so. So the thought process was, because there was a public hearing with this, to bring the other changes to the ordinance in the meetings that happened prior this year, because they were very easy, like, yes, this process is clunky, let's fix it, let's get this moving so that our office could move through applications in a faster timeline, but we realized that we're almost at the end of the year. We have 2 budget meetings coming up and that this would be a public hearing in 30 days. So we wanted to get this onto the agenda so that we could make this happen before the end of the year for benefits of 2026 development.
Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing and seeing none, then Mrs. Frank on item 10.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Fessler. We'll move to item 11, resolution. I'm sorry, Mrs. Frank, go ahead.
Resolution accepting the resignation of the treasurer, Kevin Mackey.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All right, this is a resolution accepting the resignation of the treasurer. So the treasurer tendered his resignation last Monday morning, and it's effective end of the day tomorrow. And so as a part of that process, we have to accept his resignation. And just from a procedural perspective, so the position's been posted. I think we're starting to get a couple of applicants in, and we'll kind of maybe feel out timing in terms of when we do interviews. We'll have to do public interviews, and have to vote to select and appoint an individual. That individual will, correct me if I'm wrong here, Austin, will be able to serve out the remainder of his term, given the timing of when the current municipal election is. And they obviously will have to run again to be reelected to the position. So just a quick little high level of all of that.
I do have a very odd question.
Please.
With municipal election timing and things like that. Should we not hire someone in that time frame, even though this job is posted? Could someone technically get enough write-in votes to be elected to that position? But it's not on the ballot, so it wouldn't matter.
Exactly. It's not on the
Okay.
ballot.
All right.
I believe that I'd have to look specific to the treasurer position, but I believe, as tends to be the case with almost all municipal appointments in Pennsylvania, there's a window for you to perform, and then there's like a catch-all, the court of common pleas or petition if you don't do that.
I assume that would be the case.
It just is the way that the law tends to be set up in Pennsylvania.
And I think that window is 30 days from when I don't
You
recall
when you
so
accept.
from when we vote on this, it'll be 30 days from there. And I mean, to be candid, I mean, I don't know that we want to stretch the window for sure.
No.
This is a little bit different. When Mr. Grimes resigned a few years ago, 4 years ago, somewhere in there, we had a little bit of a window in there that we were able to kind of get ahead of the curve. We don't have that with us with the timing of Mr. Mackey. So this will feel probably a little bit tighter for everybody because of that, but we'll get through it. So that's the background. Any comments, questions, referrals? Mr. Mackey. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if, Randy, did you have something?
Yeah, but go ahead, Jim.
No, I just want to thank Kevin for his service. I think he's done a great job. I wish he would have let the situation play out, but we all have to make our own decisions. So I wish him all the best, and I look forward to hopefully getting some good applicants in here that we can keep things moving.
Absolutely. And then Don, I know you're back there. Derek's not here. I was going to ask him this, but could you just give us an update on how his exit process kind of goes as well? Notably he's tied, bank accounts, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Sorry, and I completely forgot about that. So thank you for the reminder.
Thank you and good evening. Mr. Mackey is in the process of writing down his processes for the person that you choose. And I would like to talk to council afterwards about a few things that you will need to be making some decisions on here in the short run, if that's okay. He has written down his bank accounts. We do have a backup for him. With those things, it's just a process of getting things straightened out. And I think it'll be all right. So is there any questions other than that that I can answer for you?
I think his resignation was effective. Like, I think tomorrow's his last day if he didn't pull it in sooner. So, I don't know how much time is left on that process, but I suspect it'll be wrapped up by the end of the week. That's why I was asking the question.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of communication with him I know a few things on the back burner, but, I had not been able to connect with him this week and I saw you here, so I just figured it would be
Yeah,
worth.
nope, that's good. He has sent me a couple files, like I said, with his duties and some information on how he does his job. So it'll be okay.
And Dawn, I appreciate your help so far in getting the posting up and running. Very, very much appreciated.
Wendy is the deputy treasurer,
Yep.
so she is listed on everything and is able to get into all bank accounts and has all online access. We have switched all of the AP checks, signatures to Wendy, and I think Donna's in the process of switching the payroll checks to Wendy. So that should all be done. Hopefully, I know the AP checks will be done by tomorrow or Monday, so.
Cool. Thank you very much. Mr. Allison, you had a question. Sorry about that.
Not a question. I just have a comment. I'll try to keep it brief. We've all seen the progression of the Treasurer's Department, and how it's dramatically changed for the better over the past several years now. Mr. Mackey, Kevin's taken it to several steps higher, deeper, and brought literally millions of dollars into the coffers of the city because of his diligence and his ability to imagine things or research things and really do some deep dives. I'm grateful for what he did. I think we all are. I know we all are, because our city's more stable than it would be right now. I had a few conversations with him, and he's even leaving behind some things for the next person that's going to take that seat, and some ideas that he had in progress, and also some of the processes that would help them understand those things. I think it's equally important that we have two full-time individuals besides the treasurer's in the treasurer's office, besides the treasurer themselves. And we haven't discussed this much, but I know we're going to be looking for places to save money through the budget, but I don't think we can spare those two full-time positions in the treasurer's office. And I'm not saying that anybody was thinking that, but I did want to get that into the record, that we need those two full-time people. Yeah, I'm grateful for the things that Kevin did, and I too wish him all the best in the future. And hopefully we'll find some have a slate of good individuals to look at. We really need that. So that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Randy, I appreciate that. And if I can just kind of reiterate your points on the staff that we have that are going to be there in the transition. Very grateful for them. We've got two, notably Wendy. She's been through this a couple times, has been there for a long time. And you know, really because of both of them, but her institutional wisdom specifically, I'm very confident in the transition that's going to be taking place yet again. I hope as we get into budget, I mean, this is going to be a bit controversial here, but I hope there's something we can do for her specifically because she's about to train a third treasurer, right? And she's been a rock in that department. We need to do something. We absolutely need to do something at budget time. So, any other comments or questions? All right. Mrs. Frank, on item 11, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 12, Mrs. Frank.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a card access system.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Black, good evening, sir.
Good evening, President Yoder and other members of council. This is for a card access system for up at the mulch pile at the far end of the city. This is going to be from a company called Genetech that we'd be purchasing this through Berkshire Systems. This would take this off of the River Valley system that's currently in there now and put it all on, controlled by Streets and Parks personnel. There is a mistake in the resolution. It is for 36 months, but not in an annual amount of $6,660. That is for the 3-year term. This would be coming out of the Streets and Parks contracted services budget.
Any comments or questions on this item from members?
Do we need to make an amendment to strike that?
Yeah, we do. And is that what you were going to do, Ms. Mealy?
Well, I was going to ask, it seems
Yeah.
prudent to amend the resolution.
You go right ahead. You've made plenty of amendments tonight.
Propose an amendment to amend the paragraph beginning now, therefore be it hereby resolved to read to read is hereby approved for a term of 36 months in a total amount of $6,660. Unless someone prefers that it be $2,220 annually. Okay. So moved.
I'll second it. Any comments, questions on the amendment?
Nope.
Mrs. Frank on the amendment?
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes. Motion on amendment passes 5-0. Back to the main motion. Any other comments, questions?
How does someone obtain the card to get into the mulch pile?
They stop by the general offices at Streets and Parks and go in there. They'll get their picture taken, they pay their fee. They prove that they are a resident of the city.
Perfect. Just want to make sure everybody still knew the process. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question.
Mr. Allison, please.
When does this go into effect?
They currently have one now. It's just that we will be taking it over from River Valley Transit and bringing it on to our own system. So they're not going over to RVT's offices to get their pictures taken and so forth, where there's sometimes not sure if it's actually a resident of the city that's getting it done. They just look at the Williamsport address and go from there. They might not live within the borough or the city limits.
So if we have a card now, we'll have to get a different one then. Is that correct?
Yes, you will.
Okay.
At some point you will. What we'd like to do is probably expire all of these cards on a certain date. Make the
Oh,
people come
okay.
in,
All right,
get a new card.
okay. That makes sense. I guess we'll have to publicize it enough so that people
Yes,
don't get caught.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank
One
you.
step at a time.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Mrs. Franklin on the main motion.
Mr. Allison,
Yes,
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Black. Item 13, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution authorizing an agreement between the Williamsport Bureau of Fire and Cumberland Marine.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Smith, good evening, sir.
Good evening, President Yoder, members of council. Before you have a resolution between the Williamsport Bureau of Fire, Cumberland Marine. Excuse me, for a boat trailer. We had a boat trailer get damaged in the spring of this year, May time. And it was damaged beyond repair. Our working relationship with Cumberland Marine, they graciously made arrangements to get a DLX trailer up here. It's something that we had on our wish list with our wonderful grant writers. And they let us loan one in the meantime to get us by, so we were still in operation for our Swiftwater team. Since then, thank you to Mel and Valerie and Liz Volman from Senator Yall's office, we were able to secure all but $2,500 for the complete total of the trailer. That being said, we also have the $2,500 in our miscellaneous costs that can absorb this. If it weren't for our wonderful ladies that write grants and our senator's office, this would not be possible right now.
All right. This did go to finance. Ms. Mealy, anything to add?
No, not really. Finance was firmly in favor of a largely free boat trailer. And grateful to all the people involved in getting the money and making it happen this year.
Any additional comments, questions? Hearing seen none, Mrs. Frank, item 13.
Mr. Allison,
yes,
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did I miss anything, Janice? Slide
Nope,
15.
you got it.
Um,
Minutes.
item 15, except for filing Water Sanitary Authority meeting minutes, August 2025. Is there a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions on the minutes? Hearing seen none, Mrs. Frank, item 15.
Mr. Allison,
yes,
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 16, announcements. Our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be Thursday, November 6th, 7 PM, Trade and Transit 2, third floor right here. We will be having a quick police pension board meeting immediately following the city council meeting. Upcoming meetings, Tuesday, October 21st, 6:30 PM. Harb, Tuesday, October 28th, 11:30 Redevelopment Authority. Monday, November 3rd, 12 PM Planning Commission. Tuesday, November 4th, as needed, 11:30 AM Public Safety, 1 PM Finance, 2:30 PM Public Works. Wednesday, not November 5th, 9 AM Economic Revitalization, and then our city council meeting Thursday, November 6th. Are there comments from members of the public? I anticipate there's gonna be one at least. Podium is yours for 3 minutes. If you would state your name and your address for the record, and then look forward to hearing from you.
My name is Alex Heminger. I'm at 331 Rural Avenue. I'm proposing a change from ordinance 521.03, blocking garage entrance to be blocking garage entrance / driveway. Do you want me to read the actual ordinance now, then the proposed change, or just the proposed change?
You know, whatever you want to do.
Fair enough, because the current version the police are not able to enforce people blocking, say, past the curb cut. So you get the 10 foot of your driveway and you don't have any way to get out and into the street without going around the cars parked directly in front of the way. I've called many times and every time I've been told there's nothing they can do because they're not in front of the curb cut. So I'm proposing the verbiage be 521.03 blocking garage entrance / driveway. No person shall park a vehicle at any time in front of, opposite to, or in such a position as to block entrance to or exit by a vehicle from a garage or driveway, parking at least 5 feet from the curb cut of driveway. This would effectively not be like South Williamsport where it's 10 feet from the curb cut, just 5 feet, just so you can turn out and into the road without having to go around a car. If you're towing a trailer or anything like that, it's almost impossible. I would also like to ask for a crossing guard for Confusion Corner. We almost got hit, my son and I, crossing, and a crossing guard just in the interim.
Were you the people I saw running across that street like bats out of hell?
It's every day.
Yeah, I know, it's a nightmare.
We can't retrain the people of Williamsport to slow down at intersections, but we could get a crossing guard to maybe help. I don't know if this is the correct forum for that, but I figured I would ask.
What about the school district?
What's that?
What about the school district? No?
The school district currently puts one at Vernon
Market
and
and
Market
Park.
Street because that's where they have there's a lot of kids that come down from Hollywood Circle, top of Campbell Street and so on that walk to school from there.
Okay.
That's the only place I've ever seen one.
Okay.
But to Alex's point,
And yeah, he's
there are
very
a lot of
right.
students. I mean,
I did
when
ask
was
the
a
school district.
Well, no, that's
When I was a student at Curtin, yeah, I lived on West Evelyn Street and I used to cross there at
Yeah.
the park all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's actually a more dangerous intersection.
Yeah.
The one thing.
No, I'm not mitigating that. I'm just curious, like, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, sorry, and I'm taking up your time now, so I apologize.
You're okay.
You get more than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm done now.
No, I mean, I just, I think of kids crossing there all the time. I mean, I drive through there twice a day. And I see it. And I mean, I was asking like, what about the school district just because of that? And you said you asked them, what was their feedback? And I'm not trying to push things on. I'm just curious.
Not a definite. There was some interest in it, but from what I understand, maybe it's controlled by PennDOT. I don't know.
Okay.
The whole street is actually.
Yeah.
So
They have PennDOT concerns.
I guess I have to try to contact them next. I don't know.
No,
I'm trying to go up
no.
the chain.
No, you're okay. No.
So actually, I just asked our city engineer to look into this. You might have noticed real minor changes so far, but they just,
They put the lines down.
yeah, they just put
recently.
new lines down on the two pedestrian crossings going across more or less Hepburn Street there at the top of it. That one, the one that's like 150 feet long that goes, yeah, that is, I think, unsafe enough that we shouldn't be acting like that's a protected crossing. But the other two, I think we're working on doing like a zebra stripe on those to make them, and some signage, some additional signage. We have to go through PennDOT for any amendments on Market Street in the right of way. So he is approaching PennDOT about a handful of intersections up and down Market to see if the city can make some changes there. And then we are looking for protected funding to put in a more protected crosswalk system on Market Street, I think, in the next year or so. None of that helps you with a crossing guard, I'm sorry.
In the interim, it would be nice to have a physical barrier. That was not me. To stop people from trying to take out the school children trying to get to school.
Yeah, well, and I think to that point, I attempted to stop for someone in the dark, not during the school day, to let him cross the street at that the short Hepburn intersection. People went around me.
Yes.
Into the parking lane and nearly ran him over. So the one thing that I could see that would also make it safer is to try to narrow. PennDOT's right of way there is pretty small. And the city could potentially narrow the street a little further, like cut out the parking lane or put something in the parking lane so that people at least couldn't go around each other in Confusion Corner. There's too much pavement in that intersection, way too much pavement. And it makes it dangerous for everybody, including other cars. Everybody else has had a car go around them in Confusion Corner, right? Like, right, okay, just saying.
Then for the blocking garage entrance, I did email like a mass email to all council members. It was September 21st. You should have it in there. But I'll try to get that set up for like an agenda thing eventually if I can. That'd be great.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Any comments from members of city council? Any comments from members of the administration? John, oh, go ahead.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I am fairly certain I saw an advertisement for downtown Halloween. Is that coming up?
The 29th.
The 29th?
Of October.
Yes. Okay. Just to let everybody know.
I think it's maybe sorry, I would be remiss if I told you it's not.
That's it.
Downtown Halloween, October 29th.
Here, downtown Halloween, October 29th.
Cool.
Spade, but nothing.
And Halloween trick or treating in the city is actually on Halloween, correct? This year?
Okay.
Cool.
Hours, chief, 6 to 8, anybody? My kids are gonna be in violation unless we put those hours out there.
I think the resolution from way back says 6 to 8,
Okay,
but I don't know if that's been adapted or changed year to year.
and downtown Halloween is 5 to 8 PM for the record. Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thank you.
And I apologize. Will someone take up the mantle to look into this parking ordinance?
Already sent something to Austin.
Great. Wonderful.
John, you're the end of the media here. You're good? All right. Motion and a second for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. We'll have police pension here in a minute.
I'm here. Hello.
We have three items on our agenda. First is approval of the meeting minutes from 2 weeks ago, October 2nd. Motion a second to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Mrs. Frank on the motion.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Viter,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes. Item 2, changes in the investment policy statement. Donna, Deb, I'll turn this over to you. Yeah, whoever wants to walk us
This-
through what's going on.
Sure. This is our original policy statement that was adopted, I believe it's back in 2012. And periodically, obviously, we make changes to the actuarial interest rate assumption. There was a change made in 2024. So I'd like to add that change, walk through the policy, get that updated, because as you know, this is really the roadmap for the money manager as far as managing the assets of the plan. And then as I reviewed this with CS McKee, I did a review with their all their managers, fixed income, equities. We made a couple other minor changes, just sort of housekeeping things. So I can walk through those changes. I can walk through the policy. What would you prefer me to do?
Liz, you had some questions last time, so what's, I guess, most
Well,
beneficial
I mean,
for you?
actually, the main question was that my understanding had been that we were ratifying this because there was a new party to the agreement. That is to say that that was what was explained to us, and we didn't see a new party to the agreement in the document. So are you telling me that there are instead changes to the document itself, not a change to the parties to the agreement?
Yes.
CS McKee is still the
Gotcha.
second party.
Yes, now we did update, and I apologize. We did, they have actually been operating under CSM LLC. The signature in
Mhm.
the back was
Right.
incorrect.
CSM.
We've updated that, but essentially that entire relationship is still intact and still operating in the same context.
Okay, but there are other changes to the document above and beyond that.
Yes,
The assumption rate is different,
Yes.
for instance. Okay, so yes, if you could walk us through those changes, that would be appreciated, because we were given to understand there weren't any other changes.
Yes.
last time.
So just to simplify, what I did do is on page 2, I did highlight what those changes are within the
Mhm.
original policy. And you'll see center of the page under the board objectives, investment objectives,
Mhm.
item number 2, to generate rates of return equal to that or to exceed the actual interest rate assumption of 6.7. That was adopted and approved in 2024. So we want to make sure that's incorporated into the policy. So that is it as an update. And then also, second to last paragraph, we refer to that rate again, which would be 6.7% currently. Again, as we reviewed the policy, there are always changes, as you know, in personnel, and I think it's good to review these periodically. So minor change, page 3 under equities. We make reference to, and in our evaluations every quarter, we actually reference and manage and mark to the S&P 500. So the last sentence we added that the manager will also utilize the S&P 500 as its stated benchmark. We're actually doing it. We just never really stated it in the policy. So that's an addition.
Okay.
And then on page 4, under the fixed income policy, item number 1, this previously stated that no issues may be purchased with more than 30 years to maturity. At the request of the money manager, they asked us to extend that to 31. The reason being, if there is a new issue that comes out that is 30 years, you would actually own that 30 years in 2 months. It precludes them from buying any 30-year new issue, 30-year security. A minor change, but they felt that if we were making some changes to the policy, they would like to have that added. And then the final update, which we all missed, was We have been referring to them as CS McKee. Their official title is actually CSM Advisors LLC.
Got it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
There.
to be totally clear, all of these changes, with the exception of CSM Advisors, were previously approved by the I definitely remember the 6.7 assumption and all the conversations around that. But we're basically just aligning this with discussions we've had elsewhere.
Yes,
Correct? Okay.
correct.
Any questions on any of these? These seem pretty straightforward. All right, motion and a second to adopt the changes.
Second.
So move.
Okay, Mrs. Frank, then on the motion to adopt the changes.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes. Item 3, any related items? All right. I'll take a motion and a second for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi. I'm still awake.
Good night, Randy.
Not
night,
even a
guys.
little tired, Randy.
Yeah, coming out.